for the adoption of the agenda?
Sheikh Imam, Chair.
Sheikh Imam, good morning, Sheikh Imam. I didn't greet you this morning. Do I have a seconder?
I second the Blanche, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Blanche, seconds. Could we now go to the minutes of the 30th of March? Honorable members, we have the minutes before us. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5. Honorable members, do I have a proposal for the adoption of the minutes?
I move, Chair.
Thank you. Moved by Honorable Siabi. Do I have a seconder?
Honorable Molekwa, seconding, Chairperson.
Molekwa and Boss, we have a seconder. Thank you very much. Honorable members, could we take the apologies now? Babawa, the apologies.
Good morning, Chair. I received
Babawa, your volume is very bad.
Good morning, Chair. Can you hear me now?
Yes, you better now.
Okay. I received an apology from the National Commissioner and KZN.
Babawa, we can't hear you.
Hello, Chair.
Yes, that's better.
Chair, I received an apology from the Minister and the National Commissioner. They will be attending a funeral in KZN today. General Vuma, she's requesting to leave the meeting early today. She has a meeting with the Deputy President today. Rev Meshwa, he is not going to attend the meeting. I also received an apology from Ms. Patrain, she's on maternity leave. Yes, those are the apologies I have received, Chair. I also received an apology from the Deputy Minister, Chair. She'll be attending the IPID event in Mpumalanga.
Thank you very much. Honorable Sheikh Imam apologized and said he's leaving early. And Honorable Marekwa apologized because they are on an oversight visit. Thank you very much. Honorable members, last Wednesday, we asked certain questions and we requested that SAPS responds to it today. I'll allow General Vuma to do that presentation. Those are questions which are being responded to. So you are not going to ask questions on questions. General Vuma will do the presentation and then she will be allowed to leave. Thank you very much. General Vuma, are you ready?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Good morning.
Good morning, General.
Can you hear me, Chairperson?
Yes, we can hear you very clearly.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Honorable members and representative from IPID, representatives from the Secretariat, representatives from the boat crew, and all protocol is observed. Honorable Chair, thank you very much for the opportunity. We have prepared a presentation, of course, in regards to the questions that were raised on the 20th of April, 2022, which I must declare in advance that the only question that today we are not going to be able to address, Honorable Chair, is the issue of Kimberley in full, because the team is still at Kimberley. They are only coming back today. We will be preparing the report over the weekend and it will come through on Monday. However, we have prepared a presentation on all the questions that were posed, and with your permission, Honorable Chair, we prepared a very short presentation, which I will request Brigadier Mitchell to take us through, with your permission, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, General. You may start.
Good morning, Honourable Chair, Honourable Members, our DNC, the heads of departments that are in attendance, together with the representatives from the labour unions. As General Vuma indicated, we have prepared a brief presentation just to respond to the 5 issues: underspending, the audit opinion for 21-22, the filling of critical posts, the term of office of the National Commissioner, as well as a comprehensive report on the status of the aircraft within the SAPS Air Wing. In terms of underspending of the total budget that was allocated to the SAPS, which was 104 billion, as at the end of the last financial year, 31st of March 2022, expenditure stood at 99.13%, which was a noticeable improvement on the spending performance of the previous financial year, 2021, and underspending was therefore only 0.87%. Moving on to the audit opinion 21-22, the committee asked whether we would be getting an unqualified audit report for 21-22. After the 2021 financial year's audit concluded, a very specific post-audit action plan was compiled to strive for an improvement in the audit outcomes in general. Frequent audit steering committee meetings are held to monitor the implementation of our post-audit action plan and progress on the 21-22 financial year's audit. No material findings were issued in the interim audit to the department, and we are therefore positive that an unqualified audit opinion is again possible for the SAPS for the 21-22 financial year. The position regarding the filling of critical vacant posts, including the Division of Crime Intelligence, critical posts are advertised and filled on a regular basis in SAPS. The post of the Divisional Commissioner Crime Intelligence has been advertised, and the post is currently in the process of being prioritized for filling. In terms of the term of contract of the National Commissioner, we look at the three documents: the contract itself, we look at the Constitution, as well as the SAPS Act. This is just an extract from the contract, which indicates clearly that this is a contractual arrangement between the Minister and our National Commissioner. The contract extends from the 1st of April 2022 to the 31st of March 2027, and it indicates in paragraphs 1.3.1 to 133 what is expected of the National Commissioner in terms of his management of the SAPS. In addition to that, paragraph 3.1 and underneath that 3.3 and 3.4 talks to conditions related to the termination of the contract of the National Commissioner. I won't go into that. Section 207(1) of the Constitution indicates that the President, as the head of the National Executive, must appoint a woman or man as the National Commissioner of the Police Service to control and manage the service. Looking at the requirements emanating from the South African Police Service Act, Section 7(1) of the SAPS Act provides that the person who has appointed as the National Commissioner by the President shall occupy that office for a period of up to 5 years from the date of his or her appointment, or such shorter period as determined by the President. Section 7(2) provides that the President may extend the term of office of the National Commissioner at the expiry of the initial term for periods not exceeding 5 years at a time. And then Section 45 indicates that the National Commissioner may retire from the SAPS, and he or she shall be so retired at the expiry of the term or terms referred to in Section 7 of the SAPS Act. And just to summarize, the President therefore appoints the National Commissioner. The contract of employment is between the President and the National Commissioner. Section 7 of the Act provides that the contract is effective for up to 5 years from the signing of the contract. Section 45 makes it clear that the retirement of the National Commissioner takes place at the expiry of the contract term or the extension thereof, and it is therefore a fixed term contract, not dependent on age. When we look at the summary of the air fleet, at the moment, as at the 20th of April, we had a total of 34 aircraft, of which 11 are serviceable. 6 of those are helicopters and 5 of those are fixed wing aircraft. We have provided a very detailed breakdown of the status of the unserviceable aircraft. In total, we have 23 unserviceable aircraft, 16 of which are helicopters and 7 of which are fixed wing aircraft. A total of 12 of these aircraft will however be returning to service. 11 of those are helicopters and 1 are fixed wing, and indicated as well, you have the dates on which we anticipate these aircraft to be returning. The 22nd, which is today, 1 aircraft, the end of April 6, the 31st of May 5, and then the end of June 2. I'm not going to go into the breakdown that we've provided on the status of each one of the aircraft. We will look at the allocation of aircraft to each one of the provinces, the total of 34. You can see on the far right-hand side, the allocation of helicopters and fixed wing aircraft to each one of the provinces. A total of 22 helicopters, 12 fixed wing, and a total of 34 aircraft in total. The pilot information, we have a total of 52 pilots, of which 27 are rated on the helicopter, 6 are rated on the fixed wing, 9 are rated on the fixed wing, my apologies, 6 are rated on both. And as you can see reflected, a breakdown of the allocation of the pilots in the 2 categories, rated on helicopter and rated on fixed wing for each one of the air wing branches. Thank you, Chairperson. That's the end of the presentation.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Those answers were fairly detailed and comprehensive. I appreciate that. I'm not going to take further questions upon questions. We have now received answers, and there's a commitment that we'll receive a report on the situation in Kimberley quite soon. Honorable members, I'm sure we can excuse General Vuma and her team. Before we do so, it's the minister's birthday today. We wish him a blessed birthday, joy, happiness, and good health. Could you please tell the minister that the entire committee wishes him well and really enjoys working with him, and we would like him to have a blessed year. I have a number, as I said, I have a number of apologies. Honorable Groenewald will also have to leave by 11. So when you do your presentations, please just do a summary of the presentations, and then we can continue from there. Who's first?
It's IPID.
IPID, you can start.
Honorable Chair, just before we start, may I just ask?
Yes, Honorable Groenewald.
Honorable Chair, can I just ask, because I didn't receive the presentation that has just been given.
Those are the responses. It wasn't circulated. We'll circulate it immediately after the meeting. Thank you, Doc. IPID, you can start.
Sorry, Chair, before the IPID comes in.
Yes.
Yes. Chair, this is Tabo from Pop Crew. I just wanted to put an apology for my colleagues. They will be joining us a bit late into the meeting when they come for presentation. Yes.
Yes. So I'll take their presentation last. Is that okay?
Come again?
I was told that I will do their presentations last because they will be slightly late.
Yes. Yes.
My apologies to Pop Crew for giving you such short notice, but you will be having a session with the committee as all the unions.
Okay. Okay. Thanks very much.
This is not a full, yes, this is, please tell them that this is not a full session of the unions with the committee. I'll have a session of the committee where we just engage with the unions.
Okay.
All right. Okay. IPID, you can start now. Good morning. Good morning, Executive Director Nklatseng. Welcome to you and your team, and good luck with the presentation. Please, Executive Director, you saw now everybody's going to leave by 11. So just do a summary of your presentation. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good morning to you, Chair, honorable members, SAPS management, colleagues from other departments. Good morning. Can I please request that the presentation be projected so that we can go through? Babalwa.
Chair, Suzanne from the IPID will share the presentation. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. Chair, before I go on, let me also apologize. I will be leaving immediately after our presentation because we've got an imbizo at Vakkerskroon. We are starting at 9:30. So we'll be joining the Deputy Minister after this presentation. Thank you. Susan, you can project. Thank you very much. Suzanne, can you put it on a presentation? Thanks, Susan. Can we then go to, I think, the third page, if I'm not mistaken, so that we can try and save time? The third slide, Mem Letlape.
My apologies, Chairperson. The presentation is not moving on my side.
Please take it back to the other mode, ma'am.
What is happening? Why are we struggling today?
I'm not sure why is it frozen. She's trying to project it.
It's a Friday, Chairperson.
Papa, is this on your side?
No, Chair.
Can I request Babala to give Matebe Mutuahai access to share the document?
Have you heard that, Babawa?
Thank you very much. Memutwagai, can you go to the third slide? Yes, I am going to start with the Executive Director's overview. The introduction, the purpose of this presentation is to brief the Portfolio Committee on IPID's budget for 2022 MTF, adjustment to the Strategic Plan 2020 to 2025 and the APP for 2022 to 2023 financial year. Let me indicate that there are no additional resources for the 2022 MTF. Therefore, the department's priority areas will continue to be funded through internal budget reprioritization. Compensation of employees remains the department's largest spending area, accounting for 67.1%. So it's 968.7 million. So IPID, it's a labor-intensive department. The department was able to identify and reprioritize over 100 million in the previous MTF period from its limited allocation for the implementation of Section 23 of the IPID Act as directed by the court. Investigations of 4,121 cases was completed in the 2021-2022 financial year with 53%, that is 2,116 being backlog cases. So Chairperson will always go back and make sure that we are also covering up the backlog. Next slide, ma'am. The key priorities for 2022-2023 financial year. One, it's the amendment of the IPID Act, which is still in progress, and it's driven by Civilian Secretariat for Police Service. Strengthen investigative capacity and improve the quality of investigation. I'm looking at the core Chairperson. I want to make sure that we deliver quality service to communities. Implementation of IPID protection policy to mitigate possible threats against investigators. This is continuing. Development of a framework for case screening and prioritization of cases. We're doing it with APCOF. Finalize the development and signing of MOU with military ombuds in the Department of Justice and Constitutional Development. Military ombuds, there are cases where we find that all members of the South African SANDF are also involved in committing crime. And Department of Justice, the reason why we're entering into an agreement with them is that they're going to assist us in training our own investigators at the Justice College so that they can have knowledge on law and the legal implications. Continuous reprioritization of personnel for optimal utilization of limited resources. Appointment of contract workers to assist the department with contingent liability. Our contingent liability, Chair and members of honorable members, is very high. So we want contract workers to make sure that we reduce this contingent liability. Source a new case management system. We are embarking on getting a new case management system for our cases that needs to be uploaded on the system, Chair and honorable members. So it's important that we come up with specifications and make sure that that system is aligned to our standard operating procedures when we're doing investigation. Finalization of key ICT projects, network upgrades for CETA data line, network upgrade for telecom links, and computer upgrades. 193 computers were procured in 2021-2022 financial year. Next slide, ma'am. Empowerment of youth through learnership and internship programs. Empowerment of women through procurement of goods and services from women-owned enterprises. Increase representation of persons living with disability in the department. Continue to strengthen internal control systems to ensure compliance with applicable legislation. Next slide, ma'am. IPID 2022 MTF budget. I am now going to hand over to our acting Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Sitedi. Mr. Sitedi, over to you, sir.
Yes, good morning, Executive Director. Good morning, Chairperson, honorable members, and colleagues from other departments, including IPID. Chair, in the interest of time, I will consider the presentation read. I would move straight to slide 8. On slide 8, Chair, the department is demonstrating the MTF allocations per program, as well as economic classification. Chair, and members will notice that the bulk of our allocation for those 3 financial years is in investigation and information management as a core functions of the department. And when you go to economic classification, Chair, you'll also notice that the bulk is in compensation of employees, as the Executive Director has alluded that this department is labor-intensive driven. Therefore, we depend more on investigation. Our compensation of employees is always it's high. And Chair, in terms of the growth, you will notice that we have put percentages at the bottom of our figures. The percentages, Chair, they are not good at all. They indicate the growth of the budget. And you'll see that in 22-23, the budget of IPID is only growing by 0.8% to 4.3% in 24-25. Chair, this is one of the challenges that we've been presenting before yourself and the committee, because of there are growth in each and every year, your contractual obligations, your annual increase for your security industries, for your cleaning in terms of labor, as well as buildings in terms of the leases. But when you look at our budget is stagnant. It does not show any growth. Chair, let me go to the next slide. The next slide, Chair, we are also trying to demonstrate to the honorable members here the comparison of our budget from the 2019-20 financial year to the current financial year. Chair, you'll notice that again, when you looked at the growth, our budget in 2019-20, it has only grown by 1%, 2021, 2% only, 21-22, which is the last financial year, only 4%, due to the amount of the allocated amount in compensation of employees for wage increment. And the current financial year, which is 22-23, as I've indicated, only 0.8% growth on our allocation. Next slide. Next slide, Chair. I think we can pass this. This is the demonstration of how our budget has been growing and I've indicated in terms of those percentages given. And Chair, this slide is now demonstrating the allocation per province. Chair, there is a criteria that we used as IPID to allocate the budget. The criteria that we used includes the size of the province, the case intake per province, number of investigators per province, as well as the distance traveled by each province. And Chair, you'll notice that when you look at these figures, there are the 3 so-called hotspot provinces, which has consumed the bulk of our budget. Those provinces are KZN, Western Cape, as well as Gauteng, and the rest follow in terms of the allocation, Chair, considering the criteria that I've made mention too. Next slide. Next slide, Chair. Our MTF budget allocation, as I've indicated, it does not make space for any expansion of services by IPID. It's just a continuation of the commitments that we've made, as well as those contractual obligations that we have. So we cannot expand any services for IPID because of the inadequate resources. So Chair, our focus with the limited resources that we have will be on the recruitment of investigation quality assurance. As Executive Director has indicated, we want to improve our quality. We want to increase prosecution of our cases. So Chair, for us to do that, we had to look into the capacity that we have internally. And we then agreed that we need to strengthen that capacity in order to make sure that there is a quality on our investigation. So, Chair, we will embark on recruitment of quality insurers so that they can assist our investigators to make sure that there's a quality in our cases and dockets that we send to NPA. And Chair, we have also, considering the limited resources, partnered with the provincial departments of community safety, almost in all provinces, in the spirit of sharing resources in order for them to assist IPID with office spaces to make sure that our services are accessed in various communities. Chair, Executive Director has also indicated one of our priority being ICT infrastructure. We are one of the departments that is experiencing a challenge as far as our ICT is concerned. And we have since reprioritized our resources over the MTF to make sure that we improve our ICT infrastructure so that we can modernize our services, Chairperson. Thank you very much, Chairperson. That is in short budget presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Executive Director, do you still have something to say?
Yes, Chair, we still have the adjustment to the strategic plan. She's just going to move quickly over. Member Club is going to go through the strategic plan. She will try by all means to save time. So can I also hand over to her as well? With your permission,
Continue,
of course.
please. Continue, please.
Thank you. Member Club, over to you.
Thank you, Edie, and good morning. Honorable Chairperson, honorable members, and all attendees. I'm going to try and be very short in my presentation as we consider that the presentation has been read. I'm going directly to page 15, slide 15, which speaks to the adjustments to the strategic plan for the 2020 to 2025 financial period. There were no adjustments, Chairperson, to Program 1, Program 3, and Program 4. I will focus on Program 2, where there were adjustments, and the adjustments were only related to the 5-year targets that we have set. And the first adjustments was on the outcome indicator increase in number of criminal cases decided by the NPA. The target was increased from 1,503 to 2,500. The same for the next indicator, number of disciplinary recommendations initiated. The target was increased from 1,398 to 2,500. And the last one is the increase in number of disciplinary recommendations. The target was increased from 1,437 to 2,000. And this was informed by the performance by during the 2021-2022 financial year. And those are the only adjustments to the strategic plan. We'll then move to the APP. Starting with program 1, Chairperson, I will focus on the changes that were effected. Under program 1, we have 2 indicators that were discontinued: is the percentage compliance of SMS financial interest submitted through e-disclosure within stipulated time frame. And the second one is percentage implementation of gender-based violence and femicide strategy. With regards to the first indicator, it does not mean that IPID will no longer be monitoring the submission of SMS financial interest, but this will be done at an operational level. It is incorporated in our operational plan. We were advised by the DPME that we'll rather take it to the operational plan, because we currently do not have challenges with the submission of the financial interest. And with regards to the second indicator, this one, we have discontinued the indicator, but we have incorporated new indicators that are listed under point number 3. And this was done in order to respond to the gender responsive planning, budgeting, monitoring, evaluation, and auditing framework. We had a meeting, Chairperson, with the Department of Women, Youth, and People with Disability, and we were advised that instead of having an indicator that is not specific to one of the key priorities, we'll rather introduce new indicators that are more specific. And those are 4 indicators that are listed under point number 3. The first one is on the representation of youth in the department, followed by representation of women at senior management service. The third one is a representation of persons living with disabilities. And the last one is on procurement of goods and services from women-owned enterprises. So this will lead to the empowerment of women, youth, and also people living with disability. And going to the next slide, these are our indicators for program 1. There were not changes to most of the targets. Starting with the ICT implementation plan, the target is at 60%, and this is informed by the number of projects that we have planned in the 2022-2023 financial year, and also the budget. And for the outer years, it's 80% and 90%. And for internal audit plan, the target is still at 90%, and in the 2 outer years, it's 100%. And the next one is the risk mitigation strategies. The target, it's 70% throughout the MTF period, increasing from 60%. And the vacancy rate, we are still maintaining the 10%, which is regulated. And for the youth development strategy, the target is still at 80% throughout the MTF period. And with regards to the new indicators that were introduced, the first one on the representation of youth in the department, the target is 19% in the first year of implementation, and for the 2 outer years is 21% and 24% respectively. And for women at SMS level, the target is 50%. And for persons living with disabilities, we are targeting 3% throughout the MTF period. And the last one on the procurement of goods and services from women-owned enterprises, the target is 30% for the first year, and for the 2 outer years, the target is 40. Going to program 2, which is our core, we did not make any changes to the output indicators, including, to the output indicators, and we did not also introduce any new indicators. And we have also listed, Chairperson, key interventions that we have identified with the intention of improving our efficiency, effectiveness, and also the quality of our investigations prior to any adjustments or any review to our performance indicators. Already the ED and the acting CFO, they have touched on most of them. I will just quickly go through them. The first one is the implementation of the district development model strategy. And also, Chairperson, if I can just mention that in all these interventions, the work has already commenced. This is not something that we are still intending to implement, but the work has already commenced. And the second one is the framework for screening and prioritization of cases. There's going to be a workshop that we are going to, where we are going to discuss the draft that is already in place. And the third one is the MOU with the Department of Justice. The ED has already touched on this one. The next one is quality assurance framework. And the fifth one is the appointment of 9 investigation quality assurers. 3 of the positions will be permanent and 6 will be appointed on a fixed term contract. And the sixth one is the analysis of cases where the NPA had declined to prosecute. Will also analyze cases where the NPA has withdrawn those cases. And lastly is the procurement of the new case management system, which already has been deliberated on. And going to slide number 22, we can go straight to slide 22. Okay, with regards to the indicators under program 2, the death in police custody that are decision ready, the targets have been reduced downward from 120 to 80. And this was due to the current workload. We had to take into consideration the active cases that we have in the previous financial year, and that informed the target setting for the MTF period. And for investigations of death as a result of police action, the target was increased to 240 throughout the MTF period. And for discharge of an official firearm, the target remained constant. It's still at 370 throughout the MTF period. And for rape by police officer, we reduced the target from 70, and we have targeted 30 in the first year of the MTF period and 20 for the 2 outer years. This was also informed by the active cases. And the same goes for rape while in police custody. The target is now at 1 throughout the MTF period. By the end of the financial year, the 2021-2022 Chairperson, we did not have any active cases related to this case classification. So there is a drastic decline on this classification. And the next one is torture. The target remained the same at 80 throughout the MTF period. And for assault, it's 2,000 throughout the MTF period. And for corruption matters, the target is at 70 throughout the MTF period. And for section 28(1)H matters, which is other criminal and misconduct matters that are referred in this section, we have increased our target to 30 throughout the MTF period. And for investigations of offenses referred in section 33 of the IPID Act, we also increased the target to 15 throughout the MTF period. And for systemic corruption cases, the target is 1 throughout the MTF period. And the last 2 indicators is the dockets referred to the National Prosecuting Authority within 30 days. The target is at 90% throughout the MTF period. And the target also for recommendation reports referred to SAPS and the MPS within 30 days of the reports being signed off, it's also at 90% throughout the MTF period. Going to legal services, There were no changes, Chairperson, to the indicators, including the targets for the MTF period. All the targets were maintained as they were in the 2021-2022 financial year. I will not go through this slide because there were no changes. And for program 4, which is our last program, the changes that we have, it's 2 on our indicators. The indicator on station lecture awareness trainings conducted. The only change that is there is that this is now a stand-alone indicator. And the second one, the number of docket inspections conducted, this has been discontinued at an APP level. It has been taken to the operational plan, and the docket inspections, they are still very key for us. They are still continuing, but we'll monitor the progress and the implementation at an operational level. Starting with the first indicator on engagements held with key stakeholders, and this will incorporate both community outreach events and our meetings with stakeholders. The target is maintained at 166 throughout the MTF period, and for number of media programs held per year, we increased the target to 6 for the MTF period, and for station lecture awareness trainings, it's 40 throughout the MTF period, and for recommendations referred to subs and MPS that are analyzed, we have maintained the target at 80%. And for criminal referrals forwarded to NPA, it's also 80% for the MTF period. And for responses from subs and MPS that are analyzed, including the next indicator, which speaks to responses from the NPA that are analyzed, the target is 70%. So these are responses on the recommendations that we would have referred to subs and MPS for disciplinary action, and for the NPA, it's on the responses on the dockets that we would have submitted to NPA for a decision. And the last one is the implementation of access and awareness rural strategy. The target is maintained at 60% for the MTF period. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Ma'am Lekape. Therefore, Chairperson, in conclusion, we will continue to provide Civilian Secretariat with regard to the required support on the IPID bill process. Funding of key activities for the core program and ICT projects will be prioritized to ensure optimal service delivery. Signing of MOUs with military ombuds and Department of Justice, and we will continue to engage with Department of Community Safety in other provinces to identify additional office space. So we want to have a footprint in different districts. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much for that. Honorable members, I'm going to take all the presentations. So can you please note and jot down your questions? I'll take the questions after we have received the presentations, because I do not want the committee members to leave and us not to have a quorum. So could we have the next presentation, please? Could these presentations be a bit shorter so that the members have an opportunity for questions? We have received your presentations a long time ago. Who's next? We're done with PSIRA. Thank you very much, Executive Director and your team. We're done with IPID. Could I have the Civilian Secretariat now, please? And then PSIRA. Good morning, Mr. Chauke. Is it you?
No, it's Dakarani Ramaru from Civilian Secretariat.
First Civilian Secretariat. Mr. Ramaru, you may start.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson.
Mr. Ramaru, please don't take long.
Yes,
all your presentations, sorry, the presentation of this morning has been circulated. Thank you, Mr. Ramaru, you may start.
Thank you, Chairperson. We will be very brief. I will ask the CFO through you to just give high-level overview of the budget and the expenditure for the MTSF projections for the coming financial year. I will ask Mr. Baba to do the overview of the changes that we made to the strategic plan and then the APP overview for the 2022-23 financial year. Through you, Chairperson, I will ask the CFO to start. Mr. Nkondwana.
Thank you, Mr. Ramaru. Good morning, Honorable Chair, honorable members, colleagues present, and all protocol observed. I'll be presenting the finances for the Civilian Secretariat for Police Service. You will note that the budget for the current financial year, which is 2022-23, is about 150.2 million, which is actually an increase of about 1.2 million from the previous financial year, which actually equates to less than 1%. If you know that in the previous financial year, which is 2021-22, we had a budget of about 148.9, and that budget actually increased by about 12 million compared to the prior year, which at the time it was then about 8.5%. Now, looking at the different programs, you'll note that for the financial year 2021-22, the highest increase in budget was in the program 2, which is intersectoral coordination and strategic partnership, which increased by about 10%, which was about 2.4 million if you compare the 2021 and 22 against the 2020-21. Now again, moving further to compensation of employees. You'll know that there's not much increase in terms of the compensation of employees. Needless to mention that if you note at all our programs, there was no program that increased by more than 1%. All of them were below 1% for the 2022-23 financial year. Compensation of employees, the current allocation for compensation of employees is 103.7 million, which is also less than 1% increase compared to the previous financial year allocation of also about 103.8 million. Looking at goods and services, the current allocation is about 44.2 million, which is about 2.68% compared to the previous financial year, which was about 43 million allocation. Looking at the capital assets allocation, for the current financial year, we've got a budget of about 2 million, which is an increase of about just 100,000 compared to the previous financial year, which was about 1.9 million. That will be my presentation. Thank you, Chair, and everyone.
Thank you very much. Next.
Thank you, Chair, honorable members, acting secretary, and colleagues. Chair, today we are presenting both the 2022-23 APP and the revised strategic plan. Hence, we start off by briefly outlining the rationale for why we have reviewed the strategic plan in order to provide some contextual background. So I'm now on slide 3, Chair and honorable members. So initially, when departments were revising their strategic plans in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, we had indicated that because our 5-year strategy and the trajectory thereof remained aligned to the medium-term strategic framework and other government priorities, then we would not make any material changes to the strategic plan at that stage. However, given that the committee has asked us on several occasions in terms of regarding the impact that we make on the ground as a civilian secretariat, and some of the pertinent questions that have been raised by the honorable members, the minister and the deputy minister, regarding the change that we want to bring on the ground, it became more and more apparent that we needed to do a critical reflection of our strategy, and hence we have revised our strategic plan. Chair, I'm now on slide 4. We then embarked on a process to develop a theory of change for the Civilian Secretariat, which would allow us to better articulate how the work that we do culminates into the impact on the ground and how we intend to work going forward in order to influence that change that we want to see. During our strategic planning session in last year, the minister indicated that the change that we are talking about must be tangible, and then communities themselves must be the ones confirming that things have indeed changed in terms of our impact on the ground. So, Chair, in the interest of time, I'm not going to go through the definition of theory of change. I'll move to the next slide. This is just a narration in terms of the change pathways that we envisage in the implementation of our theory of change. I will also take this as read, Chair and honorable members. This is just to say that if we undertake these key interventions, then we will have that kind of impact in terms of strengthening community participation in the fight against crime, strengthening collaboration, coordination, and integration, strengthening community police relations, and also contributing to a transformed and accountable police service. So the DPME advised us, Chair, that we adopt this as an emergent theory of change that we will implement incrementally over the remainder of the medium term, and we can adapt and change where relevant as and when our contextual environment evolves, and we apply the lessons that we've learned in terms of improving this theory of change. So I'm now moving to slide 7, Chair and honorable members. So in terms of our mandate has not changed, so I'm not going to dwell too much on slide 7. I'll move now to slide 8. On slide 8, similarly with our 5-year, the institutional policies and strategies governing the 5-year planning period, not much has changed, except just to highlight to the committee that the Integrated Crime and Violence Prevention Strategy was finally approved by Cabinet on the 23rd of March, and the focus of the CSP and I suppose government in its entirety will be on facilitating implementation thereof. Chair, on slide 9, the relevant court rulings have also not changed. So with your permission, I will go straight to our strategic focus, which is on slide 10. So on slide 10, here we are demonstrating the strategic alignment of our planning orientation to the broader framework of government, which includes the National Development Plan, the MTSF, the JCPS cluster priorities, amongst others. And now we have also taken into account, Chair and honorable members, the National Annual Strategic Plan, which was introduced by the DPME as a planning instrument that will break down basically the interventions in the MTSF and also the pronouncements made by the president into measurable indicators. So with respect to the CSP, what is relevant to us is the reduction of violent crime as one of the country's top 10 priorities. We will also now be guided by the theory of change that we have developed, which articulates the change pathways towards our desired end state and also demonstrates how we align to the normative framework of government. Chair, I'm now on slide 11. In terms of our key achievements, worth noting is the fact that the impact of COVID-19 did not necessarily hamper us from making some of the notable progress on the areas outlined here and on the areas that we had identified at the start of the 5-year planning period as priorities, as outlined on the slide. So I will just highlight 3 noteworthy areas on the slide, Chair. One being that we achieved both our targets in the medium-term strategic framework, which is the finalization and approval of the Integrated Crime and Violence Prevention Strategy. And also in terms of the 2 indicators on improving trust in the police and improving police visibility, we undertook a customer satisfaction survey, which we have also now finalized ahead of time, thereby enabling us to focus on implementation thereof for the remainder of the MTSF period. We've also finalized several key legislation, amongst which is the SAPS Act Amendment Bill. And institutionally, we have also managed to maintain institutional performance consistently above 80% since the start of the planning period. And we had also attained a clean audit in the previous financial year. Chair, I'm now on slide 12, which talks to the factors that influence the performance of policy. With your permission also, Chair, I won't dwell too much on these factors because much has been said about these matters, even at the level of the JCPS cluster, particularly in the aftermath of the July 2021 unrest and the impact in terms of the trust in the police. But what I will highlight as the most critical aspect that affects the performance of policy in our environment, Chair, is the fact that, or rather the SAPS's willingness to implement our recommendations and policy proposals. And the fact that we've highlighted in our strategic plan and APP, the fact that there needs to be concerted efforts, perhaps through strengthening legislation and other mechanisms to hold SAPS accountable for the non-implementation of our recommendations, as is the case with the implementation of IPID recommendations. An example that I will make, Chair, is that on Wednesday, SAPS indicated that they will be conducting research on whether they are fulfilling their constitutional mandate. And in the previous financial year, we had undertaken similar research on whether SAPS is conducting their mandate, focusing on the analysis of murder case dockets. And there are several key recommendations that we've made in that study, which SAPS now needs to implement instead of embarking on a similar research process. Chair, I'm now on slide 13. So our emerging priorities are informed by the marching orders that we were given by the Minister of Police during our strategic planning session. And Chair, I think worth noting is also that there is a level of correlation between our priorities and those priorities or areas of focus that were highlighted by the National Commissioner on Wednesday, given that we will also be focusing on improving the relationship between communities and the police. And also last year, Minister gave us marching orders and called on us to focus our monitoring efforts on improving the functionality of the forensic science laboratories and also to adopt an interventionist approach with respect to reducing the DNA backlogs. So Chair, I won't go through the other priorities. I will take this also as read, as I've also spoken about finalizing the customer satisfaction survey and other MTSF priorities. In terms of our annual priorities, Chair, this slide simply seeks to summarize what each of our 4 programs will be focusing on this year, including key activities such as the conducting of provincial CPF training workshops. In terms of our policy and research, we will also be assessing the alignment of provincial safety strategies to the integrated crime and violence prevention strategy. And then in terms of monitoring and evaluation, our evaluation project for this financial year will be focused on evaluating the implementation of the Second-Hand Goods Act. Chair, I'm now on slide 15 with respect to the revised outcomes in our strategic plan. From the previous, or rather the initial 2020-2025 strategic plan, we had a total number of 4 outcomes. We have now increased those outcomes to 6, and we have 10 corresponding outcome indicators, Chair, and these are aligned to our emergent theory of change. So with respect to outcome number 1 to outcome number 4, not much has changed with this respect, Chair. We've simply changed the terminology from improved to strengthened, basically building from the foundation set at the start of the planning period. And then our 2 new outcomes are from outcome 5 and outcome 6, which is strengthening the relationship between the SAPS and CSP to ensure responsive policing. And then here, Chair, just to emphasize that the working relationship between ourselves and SAPS has improved considerably. However, as indicated previously, that there is a need for strengthening coordination, as you mentioned, Chair, on Wednesday as well, and ensuring that mechanisms are in place to promote the implementation of the recommendations that we make in our research and policy documents. And then lastly, we will also be striving to ensure that the CSPS becomes a center of excellence for policing policies and strategies. Chair, I'm now on slide 16. So from slide 16 to slide 21, our program performance information is outlined. So Chair, for the 2022-2023 financial year, we have a total number of 28 predetermined objectives. And then when you look at, just to mention, Chair, that from the start of the planning period, the trend in terms of our predetermined objectives, at the start of the planning period in 2020-21, we had a total number of 29 predetermined objectives. In the following year, we reduced these to 26, which was also in line with the reduction of our budget allocation. And then now we have a total number of 28 predetermined objectives. So Chair, in terms of program 1, I'm not going to read each and every output and output indicator, Chair. I will just highlight the areas that I had not mentioned when I spoke to the annual priorities. So for program 1, the focus will be on maintaining the vacancy rate below 7% or at a level that is acceptable in terms of the threshold set by the Department of Public Service and Administration, and then also implementing our 2 organizational strategies, the Human Capital Strategy and ICT Strategy, which has assisted us to improve operational efficiencies internally. On program 2, I mentioned the issue of the CPF training and other interventions. I think worth mentioning here in terms of program 2, Chair, is that over and above the MOUs that we will be entering into with stakeholders, we will also now be focusing on determining the status of implementation of MOUs that we had signed in previous years to assess whether these have had any impact on the ground. So for this financial year, we will be assessing the MOU that we signed with Big Brand Media Holdings, the MOU that we signed with Contralesa, and the MOU that we signed with Safer Citizens NPO. And further to that, in terms of program 2, over and above continuing with Minister's public participation program, we will also, Chair, be developing response plans on those Izimbizo and public participation programs in order to create a mechanism for feedback on the issues that have been raised by those communities during their engagements or dialogues with the minister. On program 3, Chair, I think just to mention here that our policy unit will be undertaking phase 2 of the drafting of the national policing policy. Phase 2 will be focused on extensive consultation with relevant stakeholders and subject experts, and also consolidating and finalizing the national policing policy. And then in terms of the number of bills that we will be undertaking, here we will be focused obviously on the finalization of the SAPS Act Amendment Bill, the IPID Amendment Bill, and the criminal law, no, not the criminal law, sorry, the PODCATARA Act. And then in terms of program 4, Chair, we will be continuing with the monitoring of Minister's Program of Action emanating from the 2019 crime retreat matrix. And then I indicated also that in terms of evaluation, we will be looking at, my apologies, I'm now on slide 21, we will be looking at evaluating the implementation of the Second-Hand Goods Act, amongst other activities. And then, Chair, from slide 22 to 24 is just an articulation of our key risks and mitigating actions. With respect to those outcomes that have not changed considerably, Chair, the risks remain relatively the same. Just to indicate that we have outlined, or rather updated, our risks to align with the two new outcomes, rather, which is the strengthened relationship between the SAPS and CSP, and also CSP as a center of excellence. So here we are saying with the strengthened relationship, the risk here is the lack of participation and cooperation from SAPS due to inadequate enforcement mechanisms, compelling SAPS to comply with our regulations and act. I indicated also earlier that the implementation, the importance of ensuring there's a mechanism for SAPS to implement our recommendations. So in terms of mitigating that risk, we are indicating here the participation in relevant forums with SAPS on a quarterly basis, and also reviewing the terms of reference for these forums annually. And then in terms of us as a center of excellence, we've highlighted here poor management of information due to, amongst others, the ineffective implementation of our knowledge management strategy and our lack of ICT infrastructure. And in order to mitigate this, we will continue raising awareness internally in terms of knowledge management in the department. And we have also embarked on a process to procure our own ICT infrastructure to support knowledge management in the department. Chair and honorable members, this brings us to the end of our presentation. I thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you very much for the presentation. I'll take PSIRA now. Members, please, can you have your questions ready? I'm just going to be taking your questions. I'll also be taking the presentations from the unions. So write down your questions. When you have that opportunity, you'll ask your questions. I have excused the IPID as she left already. I hope she has left. So colleagues, let's continue then with the PSIRA. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good morning, Honorable Chairperson. Please forgive my voice. I woke up with a very sore throat this morning, so I didn't just wake up. I would like to, before I just hand over to the COO to do the presentation, Chairperson, just to make you aware that some of our councillors and management of PSIRA are here. But most importantly, I'd like to introduce to you two of our new deputy directors. It's Ms. Talent Zwane.
Sorry, Doc, can you also just for morning, Doc, for the sake of all our records and our listeners and viewers, introduce yourself and introduce your team, and they should give us a little bit of their video so that we can recognize them. You may introduce your team, Doc.
All right. No, thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Yes, some of our councillors are here. I think I saw Mr. Ngubane. He will open and just greet so that you can see he's here, and others who are here. And then on the management chair, we have got our director, Mr. Sam Chauke. And then maybe just to save on time, Mr. Chauke can open the video and do a greeting so that they don't have to, take long thereafter. Mr. Chauke.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, honorable members and everyone. I've opened, I hope I'm visible. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Chauke. And then we have got, I want to start with the brand new deputy directors that we have, as I was indicating. It's Ms. Talent Zwane. She is the Deputy Director for Law Enforcement. Ms. Zwane. Ms. Zwane, is she there? Okay, while she opens her camera, let's move on. Then we have got Ms. Mpho Sichwaro. Ms. Mpho Sichwaro is also the new Deputy Director responsible for training and communications. Ms. Mpho.
Oh yeah. Okay. Is it? Yeah.
Okay.
The video is on. Can you see me because the video is on?
Okay. Now we can hear your voice.
From my side.
Yeah, thanks, Ms. Mpo. And then, Chair, we do have then the Deputy Director, Ms. Sebohodi Matlo. She is our CFO. She will be doing a presentation, so you will see her. And then we have got Mr. Stefan Badenhorst. He will also be doing a presentation. So the two colleagues, before you start, just show your face a little bit. And then our corporate secretary is Mr. Jacob Makolani. Jacob, just your face and greetings.
Thank you, Chair, and greetings to honorable members of Parliament. Thank you.
Thanks, Jacob. So, Chair, as you can see, we now on our management are proud to say that our ratio of the top management of PSIRA is 50%, 50-50. So we are very proud of that. And then I will hand over, but before that, Mr. Ngubane will just do a greeting and then hand over to the management to continue the presentation. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the Council. We appreciate that you're with us today and that your council members have indeed joined us. Can you please mute your mic? You are disturbing my meeting. Mr. Ngubane, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairperson. The reception is very bad here in KZN. I might not be visible, but we are pleased about the strides that we've made in regard to the change in management, whereby we've met our target in terms of gender equity. We're excited that it has moved very quickly, and we'll always thank the support of the Portfolio Committee in terms of the work that we're doing. We really appreciate all the support, and we'll continue striving for the mandate that has been given by the Constitution and the Acts of CSPS. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you. Then it's over to the COO to take us through. Remember just to open your video when you start and then proceed, Stefan.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, Honorable Chair and Honorable Members. I'll be taking you through the presentation on the APP. In terms of a high level, I just want to highlight which areas I will be presenting. Sorry, I just want to see this slide is now not moving. Chairperson, my apologies.
Who has the hosting rights? Can you please move these slides?
Chair, let me maybe unshare and then share again. There it goes. Apologies for that, Chair. Sometimes the technology leaves us behind. The overview of the presentation, Chair, I'm going to be very brief. Thank you as well for your guidance on this. We will be talking about the amendments to the strategic plan of 2021 to 24-25, and then the annual performance plan in respect of the 4 programs within CSPS, and then the budget information. Chairperson, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the legislative and policy mandates other than it just highlighting in the presentation. Obviously, you know, CSPS and our annual performance plan is informed by our legislative as well as policy mandates. So I'm not going to go into detail in respect of any of these slides. As far as our main policy focus areas are concerned, Chairperson, you know, in terms of for the annual performance plan period, the review of the funding model, and I'm specifically referring to the Levies Act, is still ongoing. Our discussions with National Treasury and South African Revenue Services is still taking place. It is dealing obviously with the contribution part in terms of the Levies Act, but also the administration of the Levies Act. And those discussions are ongoing with the South African Revenue Service, because the administration costs or the cost implications as far as that obviously need to be considered as well when the final contribution rates are determined. So those discussions are ongoing. The implementation of our organizational redesign is also one of our main policy areas. We are, gradually, depending on funding, implementing our OD that was approved by our council. And then our continuous review of our training standards within the private security industry. That includes the development of curriculum that's not there, especially in the specialized security sectors. But also we are reviewing existing specialized curriculum that's presented by different sources within the private security industry, and reviewing that curriculum to see whether it's fit for purpose for the private security industry. And then we also, one of our key areas is continuously capacitating our law enforcement program in terms of their staff complement to ensure that there's a proper ratio of inspectors versus businesses to ensure there's proper regulation. And then a transformation of the private security industry. We completed the draft transformation charter, Chairperson. So this year, the broader consultation with the industry will take place to ensure the finalization of the transformation charter. And then continuous awareness of the CSPS brand from a communication as well as a marketing perspective. We do conduct surveys as well on this particular area to assess the broader understanding and knowledge of CSPS, not only from the security industry, but the public at large, and broader the public as well. And then the development and implementation of regulations, that's a continuous area in our APP as well as reflected under Program 1. And then the digitalization of our services. We've launched our digital platform in February this year, this is something that's obviously we want to continue to ensure that there's efficiencies in services, but also improve accessibility of our services to the private security industry and the public at large. And then the decentralization of our CSPS services in terms of our organizational redesign to get our services closer to our officers, and decision making is much easier, and obviously improve efficiencies as well. And then generally our research and development, which is a standing policy focus area for CSPS. Chairperson, as far as the amendments to the strategic plan is concerned, there's just 3 areas where we've made amendments to the strategic plan. The one area is talking about the outcome of a professional, accountable, and trustworthy private security industry, because all our efforts obviously talks about working towards a higher level of compliance. Now, initially we set the bar at 90% over the 5-year period. We've come to the realization that that is not a smart criteria, and it's not a realistic target that we've set. It will obviously be a little bit baby steps. Our previous baseline was at 78%, but we've seen, especially with the impact of COVID and other issues, that our target is not realistic. So we've adjusted it from 90% to 83%. The second outcome on the capable and trained private security is not a major adjustment or amendments to the strategic plan. It's just a bit of the wordplay, Chairperson, which highlights that we previously had an audit. We're referring now to assessment. So it's just a wordplay. And then the private security is transformed outcome. We also just highlighted the development of the transformation index, where we moved on with 1 year. And to ensure that we can just build the capacity internally within CSPS to be able to measure the progress on transformation within the industry. And we've started that already with our launch of our digital platform and additional information that we require businesses to report to CSPS. As far as the annual performance plan of 22-23 is concerned, Chair, I'm going to go very high level on the programs. Program 1 is obviously our support program, which is our administration program consisting of finance, corporate services, operations, research and development. And then under corporate services, you have your human resources, your BIT and legal services that's responsible for development of regulations and other internal legal services. I'm not going to go much into the actual targets for the year, other than to say, Chairperson, it's a continuation of our theme over the MTF period in comparison to with our previous IPP that was tabled at Parliament. So I'm not going to go much into detail as far as that is concerned. It's just a continuation in respect of the finance program, the corporate services program, as well as research and development, and obviously highlighting the research reports and the transformation charter that I alluded to previously. As far as program 2 is concerned, Chairperson, this is our law enforcement program consisting of compliance and enforcement, which is the inspectorate, and then our prosecution unit. And again, in this area, it's a continuation of a theme in terms of our inspections and investigations and firearm inspections that we conduct. Obviously, we increase the targets a little bit to ensure that we work towards the achievement of our strategic plan targets in terms of the level of compliance. And then, Chairperson, in terms of prosecutions, we keep the bar at 92% of cases successfully finalized. We believe that's a high percentage, and we are actually achieving this target. So very proud of the investigations that we conduct. As far as the training and communication program 3 is concerned, Chairperson, it consists of obviously our training department, which is responsible for the development of sector-based training, and then our marketing, communication, and stakeholder relations, which is more to do with promotion and advocacy and general communication. And in terms of their particular targets, it's a continuation of the theme as well of 21-22, but obviously we've adjusted the targets for 22-23 to increase it to ensure that we improve the level of professionalization within this particular industry. And then marketing and communication, again, is a continuation of the theme in terms of the activities by marketing communication as well as our stakeholder relations. Chairperson, as far as program 4 is concerned, which is the last program of the core departments, it's the registration department, which is responsible for obviously the registration of businesses and security officers that we should participate in this industry. And we've set our targets in terms of the average turnaround time for registering both businesses and security officers to ensure that there's efficiencies there. You'll see later in MTF period, we reduced it quite considerably as the digital platform is assisting us greatly in that regard. Chairperson, in terms of key risks and mitigations, I'm not going to go through it except to highlight that we obviously reviewed it in terms of our strategic outcomes and the potential consequences and the risk mitigation plans. Is a separate register is obviously monitored by us on a quarterly basis as far as that is concerned. Chairperson, with that, I'll hand over to the CFO. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Matlo Sibukhodi. I'm the CFO of PSIRA. Thank you. The next slide in relation to, this is not moving, which one? Anyway, yeah. The slide is not moving.
Host, can you please help us?
Yes.
Okay, continue.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The first slide in relation to the budget information, we are supporting, if you remember in the first slides, we had main focus areas. So I really don't want to repeat the focus areas. So we mainly budgeting to support and making sure that the main focus area, as indicated earlier in the presentation, are addressed and are funded adequately. And then I'll move to the next slide. The next slide, we are talking to the average budget growth over the financial year. PSIRA has focusing the budget to be 7% over the MTEF. We are a self-funded organization. We just have to make sure that our revenue stream are able to ensure that we have adequate resources to fund this. And we are going to make sure that the annual fees and administrative fee fund us adequately. However, the challenge that we are facing when we focus our expenditure versus our revenue, we notice that our expenditure is focused to be higher than the budget. So hence we want to ensure that the levies funding model is there so that it can support the projection of our expenditure. The next slide, we mainly indicating to the committee that we are still funded by the annual fees and the cost report. So this is our ratio of our revenue stream. How are we funded? And we are unpacking the revenue items and also the expenses item in terms of our economic classification. You'll notice that at the end of our financials, there on the surplus, we are not allowed to fund for a surplus as a deficit as per the National Treasury Guidelines. So we are not budgeting for a surplus or a deficit. Our next slide, we're speaking to the top 5 cost drivers, which is our employee cost. We are a self-funded organization. We are service-driven. We want to enforce compliance. That's why you'll notice that we are at 52% of our employee costs, take 52% of our employee cost. And then you'll notice that fingerprint is still one of the top, because we need to ensure that the people that are coming to our database are checked before they are taken on our system. And then the 2 slides that are following, they are mainly indicating the details of our expenditure item. And then I would assume that we have tried to make sure that the proper explanation is given in the latter slide. So I'll just touch on the biggest one. The biggest one is employee cost, where you'll see it's a 9% increase because we have the OD. We need to capacitate law enforcement. If you remember in the first slide and also the beginning of the budget presentation, we spoke about the law enforcement being adequately capacitated. And then we also want to zoom in on another one, legal fees, which is 43%. We are anticipating that when we do the Levies Act, we'll have a lot of challenges. So we are just focusing that we must budget for legal fees. And one of the biggest item that we are focusing on, we are saying it might be higher, it's our depreciation costs, because we have never bought such asset like an online system. It's our biggest asset over the past 3 years. So it has given a significant increase in the depreciation cost. And the following slide are just details of what I'm saying now. You'll notice that I'm talking, it repeats what I was just talking to now. It's just explaining the tables that I was speaking to. And I'll just move through quickly on those ones and then just proceed to the CAPEX, where we are budgeting for CAPEX. Remember, there is the system that must be covered, where it is our intangible assets, the online system and record management system. And we are also budgeting for computers to refresh, as you know, that we are now on the 4AIR, and then we want to ensure that we are able to operate virtually and still do the cost containment and adopt a norm that we have taught ourselves in the previous 2 years where COVID pandemic was present. And also we want to have vehicles that I think 3 vehicles for the organization. We had only 2 vehicles and they are all depreciated. So we need to refresh those vehicles. In that, Chairperson, I've summarized the presentation and the details are on the presentation itself. Thank you, Chair. That was our last slide.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson of the Council. Thank you very much, Mr. Chauke, and all those who did the presentations. Greetings to all of you. Please stay so that you can take the questions. Could I have the unions now? Pop Crew, are you ready with your presentation? And then Ipusa.
Good morning, Honorable Chairperson. Yes, we are ready with our presentation.
Could you please introduce your delegation? And if they have proper network, can they just show us their faces? Can you please start by introducing yourself, your position, and then the rest of your delegation? I thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Trifina Pihlela. I'm the senior researcher for PopCrew. It's actually the three of us. We are led by the Deputy General Secretary, Meoma Mokokong. She, however, has some technical challenges at the moment. So she's getting in and out of the meeting. She's saying the meeting is kicking her off. But then I hope she'll be rejoining us very soon. And with us is also our parliamentary officer, Comrade Tebo Skosana. So it's the three of us, Chairperson. Thank you. Tebo, would you please greet
Yes, good morning, honorable members of the Portfolio Committee and colleagues. My name is Tebo Skosana. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Skosana. You could do your presentation now.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. And greetings to honorable members of the committee and to the colleagues. Let me just share my presentation with you. Okay. All right, Chairperson, PopCrew would first and foremost like to thank the Portfolio Committee for inviting us to this meeting. Although we received the invitation late, we still appreciate the invitation to make inputs to the 2022-23 budget. We note that this year's budget allocation has again made at the time when the government is on austerity measures crusade and SAP's budget being constantly reduced, which practically compromises the department's capacity to execute its constitutional mandate. Our submission, Honorable Chairperson, is structured as follows. Our first point of discussion is on the management structure. PopCrew is of the view that the SAP's management structure is top-heavy and it impedes the organization both on monetary and human capital fronts to execute its constitutional mandate as prescribed in the Constitution. This structure consumes too much of the budget allocated to the department. It further concentrates much needed personnel and skills to fight crime at the high echelon of the institution instead of service delivery point where resources are crucially needed. PopCrew therefore submits that this bloated structure be reconfigured in a way that would take experience and skills to personnel to the ground level where the actual fight against crime is actually happening. Another point that we'd like to present is on the issue of resources. Lack of resources and infrastructure in our police stations, especially in rural and townships, undermines the efforts of fighting and preventing crime in our communities. Distribution of resources in rural areas and Black townships where the population growth is high and informal human settlement exponentially mushrooms is not as adequate as in suburban areas. This unequal allocation of resources in SAPS is unfortunately still influenced and determined by the previous era's spatial plan. This is applicable to both physical and human resources. As most police stations in rural and townships are housed in unsafe and dilapidated structures, exposes our members to unconducive working conditions and attacks by criminals. Apart from the poor infrastructure, these police stations in rural areas are also manned by a leaner personnel due to the long-standing challenge of inadequate human capital. 2 police officers at times are expected to attend to communities' complaints and at times be available at the charge office. Some of the police stations are resourced with fewer vehicles than required, subsequently impeding the expected service delivery. We therefore submit that these persistent challenges must receive priority from the budget that we are currently looking at. The other matter that we want to talk to is on crime prevention and community involvement. Crime prevention and community involvement is the critical aspect towards achieving the ambition of the National Development Plan of building safer communities. Though POPCRU acknowledges and appreciates SAP's interventions to fight crime, we are concerned with minimal tangible results coming out of these interventions. The successful working relationship between communities and SAPs also remains elusive. A mistrust is conspicuously manifesting itself with incidents in which communities march against attacks of services from SAPs members. This was affirmed by the research study conducted by this HSRC, in which it was revealed that trust levels between communities and SAPs have remained relatively low for the past 23 years. In 2021, the public trust in police recorded a meager 25%, which was attributed to the July unrest in both KZN and Gauteng provinces. The reality is that most community policing forums in many communities are dysfunctional and weak. It is without doubt that as long as we do not have well-functional and efficient CPFs, especially in areas where there is no police visibility and police stations are poorly resourced, the successful fight against crime will never be realized. The other point that we also want to touch on is on gender-based violence. This is the scourge ravaging many families and the society at large. We want to urge the department to improve services rendered to victims of sexual offenses and domestic violence by ensuring that a victim-friendly service is rendered and that victim-friendly rooms are established at all police stations. If we are to secure a victory over this scourge, all police stations must be resourced with the rape testing kits and police officers be trained on how to use them. We further want to challenge SAPs to increase GBV desks that are now available at 381 police stations to all police stations across the country. On visible policing, Chairperson, POPCRU believes that police visibility is an efficient deterrent towards crime prevention. Nonetheless, we are startled by extension incensed by 3 years budget cuts, which project a decrease in personnel from 181,344 in 2020-2021 financial year to 162,945 in 2023-24 due to natural attritions. This is exerting more pressure on the already inadequate police personnel. With the current sub-staff complement of 144 to 153,000, there are about 50,000 trained officers who are based at national, provincial, district, and station levels, carrying out the work within different departments, whilst there is a shortage of personnel at the station level. The imminent intake of 12,000 new police officers in this financial year announced by SAPS is just a drop in an ocean, because they are merely going to replace those who have been leaving the service either due to retirement, dismissals, or natural attritions. Despite these challenges, the department surprisingly underspent to the tune of 2.665 billion in 2021-22 financial year on police visibility programs. POPCRU therefore submits that in realizing the ambitions of the NDP on creating a safer community, more police officers must be employed, meaning more budget should be invested within the community policing forum. Visible policing, apologies about that. The next point that we want to talk to is on police killings and attacks at police stations. There were several incidents of police killings and attacks at police stations across the country. A total of 32 SAPS members have been killed in the first quarter of this financial year, with 9 of these members dying whilst on duty. Police officers are now finding themselves engaged in fist-gun battles with heavily armed criminals. The recent incidents in Rosettenville, Johannesburg, where 20 heavily armed criminals on their way to commission catch-and-transit crime exchange gunshot with police is a point in case. Other incidents of grave concern are continuous attacks on police stations, which puts our members' lives at risk. Despite a constant call by POCRU to SAPS and Police Minister Bekitele to put a stop to police killings, no tangible interventions were made, and instead police killings continues unabated. In October last year, 3 armed men attacked Selori Satellite Station in the Western Cape and made off with two 9mm service pistols, 3 cellular phones, and laptops. This was followed by another incident in Malamulele police station in Limpopo, whereby a group of armed robbers made off with R5 rifles, 9mm pistols, shotguns, and ammunition. These spate of attacks demonstrate the vulnerability of police officers in our police and satellite stations. This is undoubtedly attributed to lopsided allocation of resources coupled with forever depleting staff complement in the service. The police budget cuts and the government's implementation of austerity measures exacerbates these long-standing challenges that SAPS have been facing. With that, Chairperson, in conclusion, POCRU wants to emphatically submit that with the persistent budget reduction, any effort of combating and reducing crime will remain a pipe dream. We therefore call upon the management of the South African Police Service to ensure that all resources ranging from infrastructure, human capital, and tools of trade, among others, are prioritized in this budget to ensure that our dedicated members execute their duties optimally. With that being said, Honorable Chairperson POCRU would like to thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much for that informative presentation. Could you please convey our gratitude to your leadership and indicate our apologies for giving you such short notice to present? Could you also communicate to your leadership that we will have a dedicated portfolio committee meeting for the input of unions, where all our police unions will be given an opportunity to engage with the committee on a very detailed and thorough basis. This is very important since our biggest constituency happens to be your constituency as well. And if we want to serve your constituency, and if we want effective and efficient oversight over the police, we need to speak to those who represent them. Very, very much appreciation and gratitude. We'll now take Ipusa. Are you ready with your presentation?
Yes, Chairperson. Very good morning to yourself.
Please first introduce yourself and your team.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairperson. I am Bethuel Nkuna, the President of the Independent Policing Union of South Africa. And with me here is the General Secretary of IPUSA, Mr. Mpokunika.
There's something wrong with your connection?
It has to make it. I will hand it over to our General Secretary Mpokunika to take you through the IPUSA presentation.
Thank you. You may continue.
Good morning, Chairperson, and good morning to all honorable members and our colleagues. My name is Mpo, as the President has already alluded to. Ours is a very short presentation where it comes to you in the form of a correspondence between myself and President, due to the time constraints we had on this. But what we need to say to the committee is that we already know the purpose of the police, but before we do this, I think we should do this, the right thing to do, to pay our tribute to men and women in KZN for a sterling job that they continue to do down there. I think it's a very difficult period for them, that they have to be seen doing a difficult job such as that one. Today, we believe that one of our members would pass on, Busisi Wemjwaha, is going to be laid to rest. May her soul rest in eternal peace. The purpose of the police is to prevent, combat, and investigate crime, maintain public order, protect and secure the inhabitants of South Africa and their property, uphold and enforce the law. This is traceable in the Constitution, Section 205, and in the South African Police Act. For this department to realize the above, sufficient budget must be allocated to it for the purpose of sourcing human and material resources, which must be allocated in terms of the 5 key performance areas called progress, namely the administration, response, what about this? Detection, crime intelligence, trying to get this thing here so that I'm not with you, protection and security services. The above have specific police sub-programs which help subs reach out to each client at whatever level of government they could be situated. The budget must enable subs to carry out these duties, or else there will be no law and order in the country. The national budget is currently projected at 100.695 billion rand, as opposed to the 2021-2022 approved budget, which was standing at 100.474 billion rand, an increase of about 225 million rand. I heard you saying, Honorable Chair, that in real terms, the budget for this financial year has decreased by 4.1 billion rand. We are not surprised at all, because every year we will hear that subs have returned billions of rands due to underspending. Maybe this time the National Treasury did not even wait, to ask for the police to tell them as to how much do they need, and decide to give them what they thought is adequate for them. And we are sitting now with this 4.1 billion rand under allocation. What does the police need to fight crime in our country? Do they need money, or they need good leadership? A poster's answer is the latter. We need good leadership, Honorable Chair. There are many things which we need to do or need happen before we could allocate or talk allocation of budget. A good organizational design which will enable such realize its constitutional mandate, which is to ensure safety and security to all the inhabitants of this country. This organizational design is missing. The current organizational design is deformed and needs to be reorganized. A poster is not taking the SSSBC Agreement 1/2020, which was rushed through because some senior officials wanted to place their friends in certain strategic positions for political reasons. The organizational design which failed to protect South Africans against the 2021 July insurgency, which left more than 300 South Africans dead and business infrastructure to the tune of more than 80 billion rands destroyed. The structure which failed to police elections on its own without the assistance of the army. The structure which continues to fail to protect South Africans against crime. We are talking about a well-researched structure which seeks to identify such weaknesses, to perform its duties, and propose something new to address those ills. Maslow's hierarchy of needs are divided into two, Honorable Chair, the deficiency needs and the growth needs. We need to know our structural deficiencies for us to grow. We can live with what we have, provided we start reprioritizing our budget. Be disciplined in how we use our budget. and not use it to enrich ourselves, which is corruption, or fight amongst ourselves. Let me get into the police program. The first program is administration. Honorable Chair, we are going to say something that is very odd. I think many people, it's a good thing to speak about, but I don't think many people are ready to want to hear this. The budget for the year under this 2023 is projected at 20.361 billion rand, as opposed to approved 20.259 billion for the year 2021-2022 financial year, an increase of about 102 million rand. This program includes the compensation budget for all staff members in all other programs. Now you see programs 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's incomplete. It's incomplete as the compensation for managing posts is accounted for in program 1. What does that mean, Honorable Chair? Is that the first program, it has compensation budget for its employees, but the employees are not sitting at program 1. The employees are sitting in all programs, including 2, 3, 4, and 5. Treasury should be consulted to unbundle this. The post is accounted for in program 1. Sorry. Treasury should be consulted to unbundle this. The advantage is that it will empower operational senior management, divisional and provincial commissioners to use their discretion on deployment within their financial allocations. For the first time, we can give detective services sufficient compensation budget so they build their own capacity without being a beggar. If also don't see detectives capacity changing for as long as they still get crumbs from this post. There is conflict between special commissioners and visible commanders, special commissioners and their detective service commanders. Just yesterday, we were trying to address the issue in Kokstad. The special commissioner in Kokstad takes a marked vehicle and issues it or reallocated to a uniform department without any consultation. While we were busy with Kokstad, in Umtata, the branch commander phones and says, they have just taken a vehicle which is marked belonging to detective services, and that vehicle was taken straight to uniform department. These conflicts are still a conflict, Honorable Chair. We are tired of getting involved in petty issues such as this one. Detective services numbers in the whole country are at about 22,000, including the Hawks. This department is ill-capacitated and needs to be beefed up if we are serious about the job they do. There is a sub-program called Forensic Services. Accessibility is a nightmare for the provinces. It costs a lot of money transporting forensic evidence to national laboratories. It must be a requirement for each and every province to have own forensic laboratory. If we are serious about developing policy services of forensic evidence investigation, a 5 to 10 year plan should be put to infrastructure that matters. We must invest on forensic competences from specific graduates and partnership with universities on locally designed technology. Otherwise, the backlog of DNA tests, which is man-made, shall continue to be sub-nightmare for years to come, and victims shall not get justice they deserve and on time. Remember, justice delayed is justice denied. Some victims even die before they see justice. Program 2 is this quote. Honorable Chair, community are happy when they see police in uniform, walking their streets, driving their streets, visible everywhere. Currently, there's a political battle in the south, which had led to many vehicles driven unmarked for the past 3 years. It is not true that vehicles aren't available. Again, it's an issue of poor leadership. The Commissioner of Police has a terrible duty to address this. And I'm referring to General Assembly. If all of us think that it's going to change by coming into that environment, everything is going to just change. It's the dream that we will want to see realized, but not now. Otherwise, the budget is sufficient to address public fear. There are serious constraints when it comes to government fiscal, and SAPS management must learn to live within their means. Program 4 is crime intelligence. Again here, if we are serious about effective crime intelligence-led policy, we must do away with Program 4. Here I'm the key. Resources for crime intelligence are to support our core functions: crime prevention, inside in brackets, proactive policy, and crime detection, which is reactive policy. That is where this capacity should be allocated. IPUSA knows very well how painful this is going to be to some of us, but joy comes in the morning, Honorable Chair. This program came in to deal with transformation prior to 1994, when we brought in the non-statutory forces and the security branch. 28 years later, we are still clinging to the same thing, even if we say it is not working. This will eliminate the problem where crime intelligence is absent, where real crime is taking place. Current nationalization will never empower station commanders, district commissioners, nor provincial commissioners. There is no service delivery model by crime intelligence that will provide confidence to PCs and GCs, let alone station commissioners. Program 5, protection and security service. This program, Honorable Chair, cannot be touched now. Media is not happy about the budget which is up now. After noting the political killings taking place in this country, IPUSA find it necessary that security of executive authorities shouldn't be in doubt. It is just part of those things which we should let it go for now until the country is stable. Not to say that the security of ordinary South Africans is not important. Things are very abnormal now, Honorable Chair, not to ensure the safety of all, not to ensure their safety now, it will be very, very bad. Financial programs in SAP do not reflect reality and may be misleading police management unknowingly. If the 3 areas mentioned above are to be considered and the change is brought, we will be, sorry about this. We will be dealing with public accounts in a right way for the first time. We respectfully request the Portfolio Committee to consult the Treasury on this matter for unbundling financial programs of SAP, so we are able to remove the unnecessary red tape and empower the operations commissioners. IPUSA is also worried about the utilization of task teams to investigate certain crimes which falls within the competences of provinces. It is very expensive to house and compensate police officers involved in these teams who are placed elsewhere. Task team tells us that there is a need to form specialized units. It is better to form these units and spend less in compensation of employees and housing. We ask the Honorable Chair to look into this. SAP management must give you an audit as to how many task teams do we have and how much are they costing SAP since their inception. There is also a task team in General Assembly's office. He needs to disclose it to you as to why does he need a task team from Eastern Cape when he has GP around him who could provide him with the same at a low cost, should he need one. On behalf of IPUSA, members and communities we serve, we would like to thank you, Honorable Chair, for inviting us. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that informative presentation. Could you convey our greetings to the IPUSA president and leadership team? Could you also convey the fact that we'll call you to a meeting which is just dedicated to the unions? I think that we need to be in touch with our largest constituency. If we want to do justice to this portfolio and we want to have a social compact with communities and police services, then we need to take into cognizance your needs and your challenges. Today, we have heard from your side, it is always very good to listen to more than one opinion and to listen to more than one side of the story. We thank you for responding to us in such short notice. We apologize for the short notice we have given you, but this is again, as we had our separate meeting, this is a process which we are committed to. We are committed to all our unions and ensuring that they have a voice. Your voice in the committee is absolutely important and integral to the decisions which we take. We cannot take decisions on your behalf without you. We wish to take decisions with you and not for you. So please be assured of our support and our respect for the leadership of all the unions in the police. And I hope that you'd be able to stay for questions and comments. Thank you very much to your team and your leadership.
Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Honorable members, I have put you through quite a stressful period of presentations. I apologize for that. Those of you who would like a comfort break, I'll give you 10 minutes just for a quick comfort break, and then we'll start with the questions or comments. You may raise your hands. When I return after 10 minutes, we'll all have an opportunity to comment and participate in the round of questions. Remember, you will be taking questions on a number of slides. So the question session will be 2 hours. I'll ensure that you have sufficient time to make your comments and to respond to all the presentations you have received today. Thank you, honorable members. We have 10 minutes. We'll reconvene at 10:20. Thank you. Please do not log out. Please remain logged in for the question and comment session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning to all the departments that are here and the unions. I will start with IPID. Am I audible, Chair?
IPID.
Chairperson, am I audible?
Yes, you are, Honorable Shembeni, and you have a very beautiful background. Or you at the Kruger National Park?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will start with IPID. Of the backlog, what number of cases are awaiting technical reports, such as post-mortem, DNA, ballistic, histology, and toxicology reports? Number two, still on IPID, what will be the budgetary effect of the proposal to expand the IPID's mandate to include other law enforcement agencies such as the Provincial Traffic, Road Traffic Management Corporation, Western Cape Law Enforcement, and regional and local municipal police? Thirdly, as the start of 2021-2022.
I'm very quick in writing.
Can you please mute your mics? I'm going to kick you out if you don't mute your mics. Who is Tuso Kifelaka? Can you please mute your mic? My apologies, Honorable Shembeni.
Thank you, Chair. As the start of the 2021-2022 financial year, the Directorate had 22,734 so-called post-decision monitoring cases. These are completed cases that were referred to the SAPS, MPS, and NPA, of which the progress status could be awaiting either outcomes. How will the Directorate dispose of these cases? Now, to the Civilian Secretariat, what is the status of the community safety forums countrywide? How are the upcoming local government elections impacting on the establishment of the community safety forums? Number two, in terms of assessment reports on SAPS complaints management, how does the department conduct these assessments? As it depends on the accessibility of the SAPS complaints database. Does the department struggle with the accessibility to the SAPS systems? Or how reliable is the SAPS data on complaints? Lastly, Chair, this one, I think the unions may also come in this one. It's about the acts, the employment acts in the SAPS. How do we have Public Service Act and Police Act at the same time in one department? And looking at this, you find that there are members that are employed under the Public Service Act. All of a sudden, those members will be taken to a training college for almost 3 months like that. And then they become police officers, captains, whatever. How do we get this one right? Because now, looking at the training that is given to a police member and to a training that is given to a Public Service Act member, it's totally different. Why are we having so many murders of the police? Why are we having so many firearms being lost or taken from the police? Why is our service delivery so poor? Because you find out that where there is shootings, these people, they run away. Either with their firearms or they will throw their firearms down and run. So I'm not discriminating, but it's a fact. So I want to find out, how do we have two employment acts in one department? Because now, seemingly, the police act is turned, the police service is turned to another department, or it's a department of health or whatever. We can't have two police acts, or a public service act and a police act running concurrently in one department. Something must be done here. It's either we do away with the Public Service Act or what, I don't know, because we do have the Police Act, yes. And if members are hired, let it be the police officer if you are a police officer. If you are a clerk or a data typist, you are a clerk, you are a data typist. You have got nothing to do with the police things. I think for now, Chairperson, I will stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Shimbeni. Honorable Blanche.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I'm going to start from the back, and I want to start with the unions. My request is, or my question is, are we going to get their presentations? I found that very informative, and I would like to have a copy of both. Thank you, Chairperson, regarding that. Chairperson, then I'll move on to IPID, the IPID presentations. It was indicated that they completed investigation on 4,121 cases in the previous financial year, of which 53% is backlog cases. Chairperson, my first question is, how many new cases did they get during 21-22 financial year? And what is the final backlog at the moment, Chairperson? That is the third one. And then my last question to IPID is, when are they going to finalize the MOU with the Military Ombudsman and Department of Justice, what the things that they indicated in their presentation? Chairperson, then I'm moving on to the Secretariat. Now, the impact of, I want to know, how do they, okay, first of all, what is the impact that they are making on the ground? And then the second part of the question is, how do they measure it? Is there any measuring tool? And if they have it, what impact have they made in the last financial year? Chairperson, then I see they are working on theories, and that is good to have theories. But my question is, apart from the theories that they're developing, how about asking the public themselves about what do they think of the Secretariat's performance? Chairperson, then their mandate in terms of oversight, governance, service delivery, performance, and resourcing of the SAPs. Once again, what have they done and what have they achieved? Because really, if you focus on each and every little item that I mentioned now, like for instance, performance, resourcing, etc., the police are still experiencing major problems, and I'm just wondering, what have they done in that regard? Finally, the question to the Secretariat, when are they going to finalize the customer satisfaction survey? And then obviously there are quite a few parts of legislation that they're working on, and Chairperson, some of them are really eagerly awaited. by our side and the public, and I just want to get clarity on that. Chairperson, unfortunately, during CSIRA's presentation, I lost connectivity, so I didn't get that presentation while they presented that, and therefore that is the end of my questions for now, Chairperson. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Honorable De Blanche. Honorable Siabi.
Thank you, Chairperson, and greetings to all in the meeting. Let me join colleagues in welcoming all the presentations. My general concern, Chair, it's all these organizations are working in the same environment, but they are using different formats. I understand that they're different organizations, but they are using different formats, which becomes cumbersome. To be more user-friendly, I don't know whether it's not possible to follow the same format, or at least the format used by CSIRA. I also found it to be user-friendly. Maybe that is something that needs further discussion. On IPID, Chair, whilst they are complaining about the huge budget on compensation, which is at 67% or so, I see a duplication on program 2 and 3. Those two programs are about investigation. Is it not possible to collapse the two into one? Because that would assist in saving resources. And they reported that they have a backlog. Maybe I need to be schooled in this one, because their scope of operation, according to me, is limited. I don't know how they can have such a huge number of backlog. On their program, Chair, especially on the program on administration, I find their outcome indicators not to be smart. For me, it will be difficult as they come to report on a quarterly basis and even in their annual reports to check whether they've really performed. Because unfortunately, we're discussing this at the tail end, but I find their indicators not to be smart. I don't know how I'm going to measure them, because they are not specific. And in some instances, they are not time-bound. On Secretariat, Chair, again, of course, I have an issue with their theory of change, but that is a discussion for another day. Maybe we need a session to look at that. But their presentation is also confusing to me, because there's a lot of writings and language, and I'm unable to clearly detect what is it that they want to do, by whom, by when. It's difficult for me. So their presentation really confused me a lot. On CSIRA, I saw that they are spending about 10% of their budget on rentals. And looking at their budget of 300 million plus, that 10% amounts to 30 million plus. My question is it not possible for them to use that money to build their own infrastructure? Because spending 30 million or more in a year on rentals, in 5 years, they shall have spent about 150 million on rentals. To me, it's a lot of money. On SAP's chair, just a comment. I think there's somewhere where they understate the 4 billion that was returned to Treasury. I mean, 4 billion, if you convert it to percentage of the 100 billion budget, in percentage, it might seem to be a small money, but in rands and cents, 4 billion is a lot of money. So I think they must take that serious, because in their answering of questions, there's an understatement there, which I'm not comfortable with. 4 billion is a lot of money. And I'd further suggest, Chair, that as a committee, maybe we, at this early hours of the contract of the National Commissioner, maybe we get a legal opinion from Parliament's legal services, so that we are at one with the department. If there are issues, we don't wait until the end of the contract or until the National Commissioner reaches 60 years. We address those issues now, so that we don't then come and have the same issues as what we have with the head of folks. I would suggest that maybe we get a legal opinion, so that we are also advised on the issue of the contract of the National Commissioner. I want to also welcome the presentations by unions. I think they are informative. I would support Honorable Terplanch that if possible, we get such presentations, because they will also assist us. But the unions have raised, Chair, what I always sing about. They've also raised their concern with regard to police killings and police officers committing suicide. I think it was one of the matters referred to the National Commissioner on Wednesday, but there's no response in their today's answers to those questions. So I'll still insist, Chair, that we get a plan or a program from the National Commissioner as to what he's going to do in this regard. Is a serious concern to some of us. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Whip. Pop Crew, I'll take you later. This is the round of questions and comments from the members. Honorable Moss.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I also like to thank the different entities who do a presentation in the trade unions. It's actually coherent that we hear from the trade unions also in the presentation what is the view on the issue of policing and so forth. Chair, mine on IPID, I have a question on the issue of point 7, appointment of contract workers to assist on the issue of the work. Now, I want to know how many contract workers is be appointed and how far and how long will they be staying in this positions, and how long is their contracts, and what is the cost of those contract workers? Secondly, I want to know how many constituency liability cases is this per day, per year, per month, per quarterly. Thirdly, Chairperson, on the issue of hotspot provinces, as I said, the Western Cape, KZN and Gauteng, what made it that they are the hotspot areas? Can they tell us why they think they are the hotspot provinces? While we know the Free State have a lot of challenges, but we don't hear the issue of the Free State. On the strategic plan, Chairperson, on program 1, on the outputs, what is the progress on that? Now I want to come to the issue of page 18 on the issue of procurement of goods and services from women-owned enterprises. What kind of services are these women provided to IPID? And also, what is the totally cost of this goods and services? Then also on the issue of page 24, number of investigation of corruption that are decision ready per year. What kind of corruption cases is it? Can it be name and shame that we know what kind of corruption cases is this? Because we must know as a police portfolio committee, we can't just speak generally saying there's corruption cases, there's progress, but we don't know what cases are you talking about. And then I come to the Civilian Secretariat of Police. You talk about 8% cost on consultancies. What consultancy services is this? And how much is the cost of this 8% of the consultancy cost? And what critical skills are this consultancy course is actually covering? On the issue of vacancies, 5%, what kind of vacancies? If you talk about consultancies, is consultancies about professional skills, of critical skills, or what consultancies? But when you talk about vacancies, what kind of vacancies? Is it about critical skills or professional skills? That is my questions, Chairperson. Chairperson, I want to speak the issue of visible policing. Visible policing is a crisis in South Africa. When we listened last month where the president was answering in the House on visible policing, he said that we have a challenge in South Africa about visible policing. Because visible policing is actually to foresee that law and orders be enough. Chairperson, 10 or 12,000 police is not a drop in the ocean. We have very big challenges in our communities because they don't have visible policing. People can do what they like to do, criminals can do what they like because we don't have enough visible policing. And that's an issue that must be seriously addressed. In Pop Crew's presentation, they also talk about visible policing. And there must be understanding by the police about visible policing. So, Chairperson, I have really a big concern about visible policing, Chairperson, because we cannot have law and order in our country because we don't have visible policing. And they're always saying they don't have enough resources at the police stations. They don't have enough police vans and stuff. So I want the answers on those things. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm going to offer an opportunity to the different units to respond, and then I'll allow SAPS, you have SAPS, IPID, Civilian Secretariat, and then CSPS, and then the unions. So the unions, you come in after the SAPS responses. Thank you, Honorable Moss. You can lower your hand and switch off your mic. Could I have the responses, please?
Honorable Chairperson, we can start as the Civilian Secretariat if you agree.
May continue, Mr. Amar.
Thank you, Chairperson. There are several questions that were asked on our side. I will address some and I will request program managers to assist with others. Maybe I can start with the issues raised by Honorable Siabi, which was more of comments than the questions. The first comment that Honorable Siabi made was with regard to the formats. I would like to indicate that, yes, we don't have a prescribed format for these presentations, but in a case we had followed the format that we usually use for DPME. However, we are amenable to adapting some of the aspects of the PSIRA presentation to make it simpler. Secondly, Honorable Siabi also raised the issue of the theory of change and also the confusion with regard to our presentation. So what we propose to do in this regard will be to get in touch with the Secretariat for the Portfolio Committee to get the actual issues that Honorable Siabi would like us to address, and we will then send the comments or the response in writing to the Portfolio Committee. Then with regard to the issues raised by Honorable Shembeni, he wanted to know about the status of the CSFs countrywide and whether there was any impact due to the past local government elections. I will request Mr. Nduli, when I finish, to respond to this one as the program manager responsible for this area. There was also a question about how do we deal with complaints and whether we have access to the complaints database from SAPS. Maybe what I need to indicate here is with regard to complaints, there are two approaches that we use. Number one will be we receive complaints directly from members of public. And once we've received those, we assess them and even resolve those complaints on our own. Where we need to involve SAPS, we will involve them, or whichever unit is necessary or responsible for the complaint that has been set before us. But basically, we deal with this on our own or refer it to the relevant unit. But the second approach will be where now we are looking in line with also the Act, where we are looking at whether SAPS is able to deal with the complaints that is presented to them. So on a quarterly basis, we go to SAPS for us to have access to the database of all the complaints and to check how are they dealing with the complaints. Are they resolving them within the prescribed framework or timelines as per their own framework, for us to be able to make a pronouncement whether they're resolving the complaints in line with what their own frameworks are saying, and even to give recommendations on what needs to be done to make sure that the complaints are resolved. So that is the how we deal with complaints. When it comes to issues raised by Honorable Red Lunch, there was a question about the impact that we're making on the ground and how do we measure it. Honorable Chairperson and honorable members will recall that when we did our presentation, we indicated that one of the reasons why we had to embark on the review of our strategic plan was to address this very issue that the committee has asked us previously, where we are saying the way we had crafted our outcomes previously was not such that we were able to address the question directly. So we have crafted our outcomes in such a way that we will be able to measure the impact on the ground. However, even before we did this, the way we had been measuring or determining if we have impact that we're making was with regard to the feedback that we get from members of public. The Honorable Chairperson and Honorable members will recall that in one of our previous or some of our previous presentations, we had what we call the good stories that we were getting from members of the public. As an example, we will have members of public who had presented their complaints and we with them, and then they will be writing letters or emails to us to indicate their satisfaction or to complement the work that we have been doing. So we still get such compliments from time to time from members of public, which helps us to determine whether indeed we are making any impact on the ground. And also the recommendations that we give to SAPS, when those are implemented and we can see some of the changes. So that's what we are relying on in terms of the impact that we are making on the ground. And we believe that going forward, we will be able to also report on these issues. There was also an issue about what have we done about the different issues that SAPS is going, or the challenges that SAPS it's facing. So when we do our oversight work, we write reports that we give back to SAPS, where we even sit with them and discuss in some instances. And these reports will be having specific recommendations on issues that SAPS needs to take into consideration. We even present these reports to our political principals or the ministry, where they also make follow-ups to make sure that SAPS is reporting on these recommendations that we've made. And I can safely say that there are many instances where we're able to say, based on our course, SAPS has changed certain aspects of their work and it's working. I will just give one example about what we're calling now the GBF, rather the GV desks. So it was in our reports where we recommended to SAPS that they need to continue to have GBV desks. This will help in SAPS providing services better to members of public. And they've implemented that in a few police stations, 80 odd police stations, and we can see the results of that. So this is how we deal with the issues from SAPS. There was also a question about when are we finalizing the customer satisfaction survey. Honorable Chairperson and members, we have already finalized the customer satisfaction survey in this past financial year. And if required, we will be able to send through the report to the portfolio committee in this regard. Even if we're required to do the formal presentation, we will be in a position to do that. We will await your directive. But otherwise, in terms of sending through the presentation, we will do that immediately. There was the issue of the consultancy, which was raised by Honorable Moss. I will request the CFO to deal with this specific one. Then there was also an issue about what is the vacancy all about? Is it about the critical skills or professional skills? I can indicate here that we have all types of vacancies. From time to time, we have had people who maybe move from our department to other organizations through professional, rather promotional positions that they are getting in the new departments or new organizations. And this is happening at all levels or various levels of the organization. And we try as much as possible to fill these positions or vacancies to make sure that we don't have challenges. So I cannot say it's in this area, but in all areas of our organization, when we get vacancies, we deal with them. The norms given by DPSA is 10%, but as the department we have adopted in terms of the vacancy rate, acceptable vacancy rate, but as the department, we have adopted the 7% as what we strive to achieve, as we believe that we're a small department and we need to strive to fill as many positions as possible. I will also allow Ms. Wechwe Mang if she has anything to add on this aspect. But through you, Chairperson, Honorable Chairperson, I will request one, the CFO to address the issue of consultancy. Secondly, I will allow to ask Mr. Ntuli to deal with the issue of CSFs. And finally, if Ms. Wechwe Mang wants to add on the issue of vacancy, I will allow her to do that through you, Chairperson. If you allow, I will ask the CFO to respond.
Chair.
Hello?
Through you, Chair.
Yes, you may.
Yes, Chair, the issue of vacancy rate, we really are pressing ourselves and we are trying because we are a small department. However, with the introduction and implementation of the recruitment, selection and retention strategy, whereby we are intending to retain the resources that we have without really losing it to other departments and to other institutions. We have seen a number of internal promotions within the department that are really negatively impacting, although they are a positive intervention, they are also impacting negatively on our recruitment process, because when we promote internally, there is no impact on the vacancy, as it is from the 1st of April 2021 up to the 31st of March 2022. We have filled about 13 vacancies. However, 77% of those are internal promotions, because they also follow the same process that we follow when we recruit externally. So those are the impacts that our other strategies that we're implementing, although positive, they've got somehow negative consequences towards reducing our vacancy rate. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who's next?
The CFO.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, to Melonko Joanna, the CFO at the Civilian Secretariat for Police. I must say that we don't use consultants that very often, but in instances when we use consultants, it will be mainly for the program policy development. And this will be actually specialized skills that are required when they are actually doing the whole process of policy development. But there are also instances, although there are also very few, there are also instances whereby we've got already established consultants, which we only use and pay them during when we make appointments of staff, and also when we would have referred some of the staff members for their well-being to this type of consultants. But those consultants are only used as and when they are needed. Thank you very much.
Chairperson, I will then go to Mr. Ntuli to respond on the CSFs.
Mr. Amaru, who's chairing this meeting?
My apologies, Chairperson.
Mr. Amaru, do you realize that you're taking over half of my salary?
My apologies.
You can continue, Mr. Amaru. Who's next?
I will request Mr. Ntuli to respond on the CSFs, and through your permission, I had forgotten the question from Honorable Blanche on the progress with the legislation. Then after Mr. Ntuli, through you, I will request that the legislation unit, Mr. Ntwana and Dr. Jacobs also respond to that. Then we will be done.
You must now be quick, please, Mr. Amaru, or else you're going to have serious challenges with the chairperson.
Yes,
can you
will be brief
and to the point?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning, honorable members and colleagues. In terms of the community safety forums, the CSFs, in the closing year, we're having 141 of these community safety forums. Now, I can thereafter present the actual municipalities where this exists, because they are dependent on the configuration of wards after elections of local government. Once those changes comes, depending on how municipalities have been established, then we adjust this accordingly. But to be precise at the moment, we are having 141. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Next.
Chairperson. Honorable Chair.
Yes, you may continue.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson and honorable members. With your permission, Chairperson, this is Patrick Sitseli. I'm standing on behalf of the Executive Director for IPID. Chair, we've got program managers. Chair, just to make sure that we answer all the questions raised by honorable members. We've got about questions that were raised by 4 honorable members. We'll start with Honorable Shambeni. I will request the program 2 manager to deal with questions raised by Honorable Shambeni on technical reports, as well as post-decision ready. I will also, while he's still on the platform, request him to deal with the question raised by Honorable Tereblanche on the cases that were received in the financial year 21-22, and also to deal with a question on the duplication of program 3 and program 2, and backlog as well from Honorable Siabi. And Chair, I will also request our Head of Legal Services to address the issue related to the MOU between IPID, Military Ombudsman, as well as Justice, and also to address the issue on the contingent liability. And Chair, I will, with your permission, I'll also request the Director SPM to address the question raised by Honorable Siabi on the indicators that seems not to be smart. And Chair, I think the last questions, I will come in and wrap up once the colleagues have responded. Thank you, Chairperson. Let me allow the colleagues to respond in that order, starting with the program 2 manager. Ntate Felagai, over to you, sir.
Thank you.
You must
very
start
much.
finishing up now, please.
Yes, I'll be fast. Morning, Honorable Chairperson and other honorable members. Starting with the first question that was posed by Honorable Shambeni on the outstanding technical reports, postmortem DNA histology and so forth. What we do is that, Honorable Shambeni, on monthly basis, we check as to how many technical reports have we received and how many are outstanding. During the Q4, we had 360 that were outstanding, but since then we have received some, and then because of the new intake, we would then request the provinces to send and we consolidate, but the number at the time it was 360. And then on the issue of the PDMs completed, how will IPID dispose of the cases? Honorable Shambeni, from time to time, as and when we complete cases, we build more post-decision monitoring. And the challenge that we have is that as and when, the more we work hard, the more we increase our PDMs. And on the other side, we make sure that as soon as the case is completed or it's finalized rather, we make sure that we close it within a reasonable time frame. There is a standing operating procedure that we follow for the closure of cases. So all the managers in the provinces, they know the time frames, but we try by all means that we push even if it means having a special project from time to time to deal with such. And with regard to the issue of the matters raised by Honorable Tereblanche, that there were cases that were completed in the previous financial year, of which 53% of those were on the backlog. It is true that often the backlog cases, the old cases, are the ones that we would have done some quality work on them. Hence, we are able to complete more of those than the current cases, because at the time we would be dealing with such cases. So indeed, it's true that we received 5,295 cases just in the previous financial year, which is quite a lot. But yes, we are attending to them, even in terms of the challenges that we experience, various challenges. We try by all means to deploy various mechanisms, strategies to try and deal with such. And then with regard to the question that was posed by Honorable Siabi on the duplication, I think that one, I would ask the CFO to respond to it. And then with regard to the scope is limited, why such backlog? I want to say that at present, the total backlog that we inherited from the previous financial year is 24,402. That is the backlog as at the end of March 2022. And the total, if we add both the backlog and the PDMs, the numbers that we have currently as we speak is 37,116, which is a lot. And if you can look at the numbers of the PDMs and you break them in terms of the available personnel, you will realize that close one investigator on average will be carrying over 250,000 cases. On the question posed by Honorable Mas, it was in relation to why certain provinces have been classified as hotspots. The hotspots provinces, we looked at the intake, that the intake is very high in those provinces. Number two, that the nature of matters that we receive in those cases are very serious, such as your death as a result of police action, which is a problem in some of the provinces. You find that we also have torture cases that are mushrooming in some of the provinces that we have mentioned as hotspots. We also looked at other classifications that are of a serious nature. Hence, we would then term that provincial office a hotspot. And I also want to point out something very much critical, that when you look at what we normally refer as to the big four, which is Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Eastern Cape, and Western Cape, the four provinces would account to 75% of the workload of the department. And now, coming to the issue of Free State having challenges, and nothing is being said. I want to say that the challenges in the Free State have been receiving attention. And I want to even point out that even this coming week on the 25th, there is a special sitting in the Free State where such issues will be addressed. And I reckon that the ED has coordinated that and invited the key stakeholders such as the National Commissioner as well as the Deputy Minister to try and deal with all the challenges that are being experienced in the Free State province. On issues of corruption, there was a question by Honorable Mas as to what type of corruption are we dealing with currently as IPID. The type of corruption that we are dealing with vary. In some instances relates to the entrapments, where the members of the community would then involve IPID to conduct those entrapment in terms of the applicable legislation, because they would say, no, we do not have confidence, because the people that we want to set a trap on are the members of the SAPS, and we do not believe that they may be able to arrest those that are within their ranks. So we would pounce on that. And the other classification that is very common is in relation to promotions, where there are issues of manipulations of systems. So we receive a whole lot of those, and the others that we receive relates to instances that I can refer to as manipulation of stats, in a sense that you'd find that the police would, I'll just give an example, where they would arrest 15 people for big crimes, minor crimes, but they will charge one person for that crime and take fingerprints of that one person for the other 14, meaning one person will have to carry the burdens of 15 people. And then you would then realize that that on its own will then raise the stats of the SAPS. But on the one hand, you realize that one person cannot on just one day commit different or various crimes in various locations, and we were just
We have lost you.
Chairperson, with your permission, while we are trying to locate Mr. Jefalagai, we can ask our legal services to come in. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, you have run out of time, because I still have IPID and I still have CSPS and I have the unions. You have now seriously run out of time. You can send me the rest in writing, please. I'll take IPID. And please, from the unions, don't send me messages in the chat group. You are disrespecting the chair. If you want to send me questions, send them to me in writing, please. IPID, you can respond now.
Chairperson, it was IPID on the platform.
Sorry, CSPS and then Civilian Secretariat.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chairperson. On behalf of CSPS, we only received one question from Honorable Seabe about the rentals. We agree that the rentals are quite expensive. However, Chairperson, we have tried the model before of trying to purchase our own building through Treasury, and Treasury did not approve it on the basis that they prefer a lump sum for us to purchase on a lump sum. We will be revising our leases in the future and scaling down on the space. We have revised a few of those that have expired recently. So we're looking forward to bring the amount of rentals down. Thank you.
Thank you, CSPS, Civilian Secretariat.
Chairperson, we had already responded to the question.
Why do I keep on calling you Civilian Secretariat today? I'm so sorry. Who's next now?
SAPS, Chair.
SAPS, you can come in. Are they here? Do we have responses from SAPS now? Who's going to be next?
Seemingly they are not here, Chair.
No. The unions, you can come in now. Pop Crew and then Ipusa.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. From Pop Crew, we had a question directed to the Civilian Secretariat for Police Service. We are already covered on the concern on measuring the impact on the ground. However, we still want to identify from the Civilian Secretariat on, we firstly appreciate the role they play in terms of policy development. However, we believe there is always a gap in terms of implementation, legislative implementation on all policies. So we wanted to check with them what kind of mechanisms do they have in place of ensuring proper implementation of all these policies that they are developing, and also proper implementation of policies actually so as to improve policing in accordance with all the legislations aimed at improving policing within the country. Yeah, that's all from us, Honorable Chairperson. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. SAPS left the platform. We'll email them the questions for their response, and we'll hand over forward the responses to the members. My apologies for that. The documents of POP Crew and all the other unions will also be distributed, and POP Crew, you'll also receive your information from us. Whatever you have asked, we will respond to. Could I now take Ipusa?
Thank you, Honorable Chair. We had a question posed to us on whether the PSAP members could form part of the SAPS. Why do we have, different acts within the very same environment? The answer is simple, Honorable Chair. I've posted to share the agreement, triple SBC agreement, one of 2022. Let me just check it here. Agreement number 2 of 2011. This agreement speaks to the same issues the Honorable Chairs have requested. This is under part D. Parties acknowledge that the core business of South African Police Service to prevent, combat crime, investigate, and therefore parties will embark on process which seeks to explore a composition model which differentiates between operational and support environment personnel employed in terms of the South African Police Service Act. And then it goes down, they say, further agree to pursue measures to, during the 2011-2012 financial year with DPSA and National Treasury that will ensure that the current Public Service Act will become a category of employees in the Department of Police. This will embrace the necessary changes to the legislation. We have learned now, Honorable Chair, that the Police Act is under review. I think this is the correct or opportune time for all of us, and including us as a union, to input into the Police Act changes and bring in this proposal to be embedded in the new Police Act. So it is possible, it is feasible, but it will depend on the lawmaker. On the other issue of the presentations, yes, those presentations are available. We just want to tweak it here and there, and then we'll push it to you, Honorable Chair. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this question, Honorable Chair, because I think this platform is yours. Honorable Chair?
Yes, yes.
Am I asked this question to IPID?
You may, please, can you put that question for IPID in writing? They
Okay,
may
I'll
not
do that.
have, they may not have the
answer.
responses directly. Could you
No
please
problem.
put it in writing?
I'll do.
Thank you very much. Honorable members, would you like to have, I'm not going to take another round of questions. If you would like to comment on something which you still feel has not been responded to, it's the time for the honorable members now.
Chairperson, can I say something?
Yes, Honorable Tablanche, it's your turn.
Chairperson, just to IPID, the questions that I asked, they haven't responded to all of that. They just touched on one question that I asked, and I would like to get feedback in writing then on the other questions that I asked, Chairperson. Thank you.
IPID?
Thanks, Chairperson. I thought our legal will respond to the question on military ombuds and the matter on justice. But we will send a written report to that effect on all the questions that were not responded to.
Thank you very much. I think we also have to acknowledge the role of private security in crime prevention, and the comments which the review panel of the president made into the role of private security companies during the violence in KZN and Gauteng. Honorable members.
Honorable Chair.
Yes.
Before you close, there was a question asked as to why do you see the movement of civilians wearing a uniform, going to the college? I did not answer that one, but I think it is clear. It is that the mobility of PSIRA members in the South African Police Service is limited to salary level 7. The moment they apply for posts to salary level 8, they have to be translated from the PSIRA members into the Police Act. Hence, you see them going for 3-month crash course. So that will also be dealt with when we are dealing with the issue of the Police Act and even the issue of the agreement. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much. Again, to the unions, it is very clear that we need a very good session with our unions, where we can interrogate the suggestions you have made. We can listen to your suggestions. You made extremely good comments today. The discussion was more fruitful because of your inputs, and I really wish to pay my respect and congratulations to you for your inputs today. Honorable members, next week we have our leave period, but there will be a house sitting, a joint sitting on Tuesday. We still have to look at the matter of the amendment to the DNA bill. I haven't forgotten about that. It will be with us shortly. Could all those who had to still give us responses, could we have it with my secretariat and Ms. Nicolette van Zyl, the content advisor and the researcher by Monday, please? We are no longer waiting long for these responses. All the documents should be shared with SAPU. Even if SAPU couldn't make it today, could we share the documents with SAPU? Could we also share yesterday's presentations to all, Wednesday's presentations to all our unions? Honorable members, staff members, that brings us to the close of business and the end of business today. We'll confirm with you the next meeting. I wish you well and see many of you on Tuesday. I thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Tablanche. When are you coming to Parliament? I want to see you. You're missing, man. I'm missing you.
I'm on my way there. We need to have a